going to call the Select Board meeting for Monday, April 29th, 2024 to order and announce that we will be going into executive session and we will not return for our regular meeting before 6 p.m.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Select Board into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiation with non-union personnel, police chief, and town administrator, as well as pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
Thank you, Jeff. Did he second? Did you second it?
Second.
Second, thank you. Hi, Pete. All in favor? Michael?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 4-0. Two, we did take action and approved buyback for the town administrator in terms of 2 weeks, 70 hours of vacation. And then we also made a decision in terms of allowing the town administrator to take certain leave in July, and so we took action on that one. And that is it. We did not take any action on item A, Part 1. And as required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing no one, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody for public comment and announcement?
Good evening, Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber. In a couple of days is May 1st, and as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago with some very colorful pink flamingos, May is Harwich is a wonderland, and you'll see hopefully 100 pink flamingos throughout town. We're still working on that, but there are a number of events happening as part of it. We have on this coming Sunday at the Arrival a excuse me, tea party and croquet with Brenda's Cakes for All Occasions and Red River Barbecue, 2 seatings. There are tickets still available on our website, as well as on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week. We are doing book signings with our Wonderland cast at Chase Library, Brooks Free Library, and Harwich Port Library. And then Mother's Day weekend is Wonderland. I put a postcard in front of all of you, and then there's some in the back, as well as a variety of banners around town. This is a production we're doing at Mount Blue Hall at Pilgrim Congregational Church, and it runs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of Mother's Day weekend. And we'll also have 2 new business openings with ribbon cuttings, as well as 2 anniversary celebrations, as well as a couple of things with the Garden Club as well. So Bill will be writing out a whole bunch of things in this week's paper as I hand this over to him now, but check out our website. He asked for it earlier, now there he goes. But check out our website. We have a lot happening in the month of May. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Cindy. Anybody else for public comment and announcement?
Thank you. Good evening. Matt Sutphin, Harwich Center. You all are aware that I sent you an email a few days ago, and I did get one response, which suggested I should do some fact checking, and maybe some of my writing to you was false. So, with that in mind, I'm here just asking what facts I may have missed on Article 37.
Michael?
Basically, because this is not an agended item, I would say that it's not in line. I did say you should do some fact checking, and it's not related to Article 37. It was related to some of the other
language you put in the top, specifically to Saquatucket Harbor and the 100-seat restaurant.
Oh, okay,
So if
well, you
go
certainly,
back
Hold
and read
on,
your-
let him
Sorry.
speak.
If you go back and read your entire email, there's several inconsistencies. As
Well-
for Article 37,
Yeah.
that is your opinion, and I did agree to talk to you on the phone, and I recognize we played phone tag today.
that we did.
But I'm certainly happy to share my one board member's opinion of that with you when we speak, or when it's on an agenda.
Well, thank you for that. You did explain to me that you would not write a response to me, that I had to talk to you on the phone. So I'm still unclear, or should I be unclear that Article 37 is all about cutting down 2 trees, replacing the brick pavement with some gold bricks, spending the better part of $115,000, while somehow we can't sum up the money to paint Brooks Academy this year, which I'm, of course, sensitive to because I was the last class of Brooks Academy. So what I'm saying is this is an inappropriate expenditure, and
So I'm just going to stop you there because
Okay.
that debate is
Yeah.
for town meeting floor.
well, that's the reason I wanted to be here before you to clear this up is I may be out of town all next week, so I need to find somebody to speak in my stead, and I just want to be clear on the facts of Article 37.
As long as you find somebody who wants to speak on your behalf and shares the same thoughts, and there's a registered, voter in Harwich, then you can do that. But it's not for this
Okay,
moment.
well then, just if you would answer this specific question. Is the board, by condoning this article, as the Finance Committee condoned this article, proposing that the Brooks Library can spend up to $115,000 replacing the sidewalk, cutting down the 2 trees, and introducing 2 new saplings? Am I right on all that?
Are you right in your summary of the article? Is
No,
that
I'm
what you're
asking you if I'm correct on the facts.
Well, you can, as I said, that's to be debated on town meeting floor. We don't have to, we can say we recommend something, and we can still vote against it.
Why are you
Anyone-
recommending it? I'd like the facts as to why
So-
you would recommend it.
So again, that is a debate for town meeting floor. FinCom can make a recommendation, the board makes a recommendation, whatever other way people want to vote on that article, then they can vote on that, including yourself. And so at this point, this is for public comment. We had a whole session last Wednesday, you were here for it, and we talked about it. If there's further discussion to happen, it should happen at town meeting.
Very good. I just refer you back to the comment earlier, which was no explanation as to why my facts were not correct or false. Thank you for that.
I
Thank
think
you.
I heard the board member
If
replied.
I may.
Go ahead.
What I said, just so that the public is clear, is I will not banter back and forth with you on email. That's what I said. Second, I will share your email in next week's packet if you'd like. Your email was about many, many, many things, and then Article 37. I said you need to fact check before you write, and I stand by that because you were completely wrong on 2 different votes that were on there. And just if it is on the agenda later to have warrant discussion, so if you want to stick around for that, I'd be happy to tell you why I support
Well,
Brooks
thank you.
Library.
And may I give you a rejoinder if it doesn't seem right later in the evening?
Excuse me, I didn't hear
He
that.
wants to debate Article 37
No,
later, but
Yeah.
it is on the agenda.
it's on the agenda,
So-
if you want to stick around, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Is anybody else here for public comment and announcement? Hearing nobody, I will also make note that Memorial Day ceremony, which is Monday, May 27th, 2024, at 9:30 a.m. at Brooks Park. And now for the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes from March 19th, 2024. I'm going to single them out because I have a little change on one of them. So we'll start with March 19th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain. 3-0. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes for April 22nd, 2024, with one modification, which I found on page 32, which refers to our rec director as Eric Bieber, not Justin's brother, but it should read Eric Beebe. Director of Recreation.
I'll
Thank
second
you.
with that change.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You aye, okay, 4-0. And the other one was 3 and 1 abstention. Okay, new business? Joe, I'll hand that over.
Madam Chair, if I could, as I speak, I'd ask Jeff Gregg to come to the main table. As you can see in the packet with my cover memo, Jeff joins us from GHD, our engineering consultant on many things, but most presently, Phase 3 of the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, AKA the East Harwich Sewer Expansion Project, our Phase 3. So as you can see in the memo, as Jeff gets settled, I'm going to unsettle him with some positive comments. Jeff is the head of the team at GHD that's working directly for us, technically for you, the Select Board, on the construction project. And as many, if not all of you, remember from years past, cost estimation is critical when you're building your bid documents and all of that. Last Tuesday, the town received bids for the Phase 3 1 East contract, and then Thursday for the Phase 3 2W contract. And I'll let Jeff speak to his documentation, but as you can see, the cost estimations were spot on, which is, well, for me, it should be a point of personal pride for Jeff and the team at GHD. I think for Jeff and the team at GHD, it's what they do. So Jeff is here tonight to just briefly go over the bid results, the preliminary bid results. We're working towards you folks on May 13th voting to award contracts to the responsible and responsive bidders based on GHD's recommendations. Additionally, with both of those contracts, as you can see in the spreadsheets, there are 3 alternate projects or sub-projects conveyed in each of the 2, 1E and 2W. We need to have a discussion tonight on alternate 3 for each of those contracts to give some guidance so that Jeff and his team can go back and finalize documents for that award. Jeff, I'll turn it over to you to correct anything I said, but I will not accept correction on the cost estimation. Great job by GHD.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you, Board, for having us. So I believe in your packet you had 2 separate tables, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. I presume that everyone saw the, basically this is the boiled down summary. The actual tabulation of bids went out to all the contractors and everyone on the plan holder list this afternoon. So we had for the 1E contract, which was the larger of the 2 contracts, E being east, so that was primarily Route 39 area. We had 5 bidders, Robert B. Auer, CC Construction, RJV, PGOSO, and Albanese DNS bid on the project. The bids were really favorable. Robert B. Auer right now is currently the apparent low bidder. And their total with all the alternates is around 21 million and change. Our estimate was 27.5, and the average bid across the board was just under $27 million. So it was a really good spread. And then for the second one that we opened on the Thursday, we had 4 bidders. Robert B. Auer, CC Construction, RJV, and Diggett. Again, RBO was the apparent low bidder, just over $10 million. Our estimate was 12.4, and the average was 11.5, plus or minus. So again, a really nice spread. Then, before we get into the alternate discussion, the second table was really just to kind of show you where it fell relative to the total appropriation for the project and budget. So the first column is the GHD estimate with the 2 contracts at the top, all the alternates, and then the various different components like contingency, engineering, construction phase services, police details, utilities, etc. Right now, with the RBO bid and actually maintaining a 10% contingency, which we are going to ask the state to see if they'll grant us. The total project with all alternates is around $41 million, so it's well within your appropriation right now, which is very good. So the reason that we wanted to meet today is that we do have the 3 alternates for each of the projects. I think the last time we met with the board, the desire was to award as many of the alternates as possible based on how much funding we had. But one of the things that came up between that meeting and as we were getting ready to finalize, and I think we might have even been in the middle of the bidding cycle, was one of the neighborhoods in contract 2W, which was Walden Way, had requested reconsideration of putting in low pressure sewer in that neighborhood because they were willing to offer a pumping station location that we weren't aware of during design. And so the recommendation at this point would be to hold on that and do that neighborhood as a subsequent project. What we haven't done is developed an estimate yet, but what we can do, because we have all the bids, is we can look at what was bid, the average prices, and give you a general cost difference between those two. We know the desire also, just from a general public perspective, is, the preference of gravity. That was certainly what we were trying to do to maximize the design, both in this one, and I know that was also the desire in phase 2. I guess at this point, we would be looking to award the base bid and the first 2 alternates on the contract 2W. But we wanted to, get.
Madam Chair, if I could
Yeah,
just
sure.
add to that, Dan Pelletier, our former wastewater superintendent, had heard from neighbors in that area. He passed on information to me, so I had a conversation Friday evening with one of the neighbors in that area, and he generally conveyed that they are all in agreement. They would prefer this action of not going forward on alternate 3 and handling it separately. And if I say it correctly, as much as we love the delta between what was estimated and what the project cost may come to, we're still going to need those appropriation dollars available for other projects, and perhaps including this project in the future. But this is something that the folks in that area are preferring happen tonight and going forward.
So in terms of just a off-the-cuff question is, in terms of that sequencing, if you were to move forward with the other items and then bring that one in at the end, is that going to be any kind of remobilization costs or anything?
So we would actually probably not do it as a change order, and the only reason is that it's unclear how fast we could get through all the permitting for the pumping station.
Okay.
So knowing how long it takes, just in terms of working out the logistics of getting the easement, securing the easement of the property, going through planning board, zoning board, and then actually the DEP permitting for another pumping station. It's possible that could happen during the construction time period, but it would be just as easy to get through that and be able to,
You just go back to
append-
that after completely?
You could bid that as part of another project or things like that, and then you'd have all your ducks in a row, and you wouldn't be trying to scramble, with the change, especially if something comes up that we're not aware of. If it's for whatever reason, an archaeologically sensitive site, or there's some other reason for, a delay in that process, it wouldn't hold up the contractor from completing that work.
Okay.
And then, so I think that covers the kind of the idea of why we pull that out as opposed to doing it as a change order.
Do board members have any questions, or nothing? Okay, you can go ahead, Jeff.
So in contract 1E, we have a neighborhood that's kind of been back and forth on the last two projects, which was the Huckleberry Sadie's neighborhood. It was originally, as part of Phase 2, looked at as being a gravity system with a pumping station kind of in the middle of the neighborhood. And that wasn't able to move forward. And so, without being able to identify a pumping station site at this time, we had moved forward and designed it as low pressure. So basically, grinder pumps for the neighborhood. There's the possibility that, based on the wide layout, that you might be able to find a location that's close to the Sadie's Huckleberry intersection, but we weren't tasked with, we didn't go through that step, because the direction early on in the project was, hey, we'll just, because we weren't able to do the gravity last time, and Dan had reached out to property owners in the area and hadn't really gotten any feedback from them, we left it as low pressure. If there's some desire from the town's perspective that they don't want to do that and move forward with that alternate, that's why we did actually leave it as alternate 3, just in case there was I was probably more expecting it for Huckleberry Sadie's than I was for Walden, but if there's that further discussion that the town would like to hold on that piece, you could, but I don't know how many times you want to go round that one. So we're prepared to move forward and award based on the design as it stands, but we wanted to make sure that there was no other further comment from the board. Joe, did I say that?
Yes, I believe
Well
you've
enough.
captured it. One of the residents in that area, Dan also gave me contact information, contacted them, left a message on Friday. They called back this afternoon. I haven't had an opportunity to connect. But in my message on Friday, I did say we would be talking about that neighborhood for this alternate, and that there may be some discussion by the board. But I don't have the same level of interaction as I did with the Walden Way item.
So in terms of moving forward, though, we have time anyway to have those conversations while or are you looking for us to make a decision tonight, just for clarification?
So what we are hoping to do at the end of today is be in a position to, so one of the things that we'd like to try to do is, because the timing for the state takes a while, we need to submit a letter to the state that requests permission to award. So it's not the town's vote on, the board's vote on the 13th would be your actual motion to award the contracts, but we also need permission from the state. If we can put that letter into play before the 13th, it gets us in the cycle so that hopefully maybe even by the 13th, we might even have that response from the state that says, yep, you're okay to award that, and we could do that. Part of that process, though, is we need to update the cash flow and indicate, our letter to the board that would be, hey, this is who we recommend and what we're recommending the award to be for. So we could do it in between the two, but ideally, if we were able to come out of this meeting, then as we're finishing up our due diligence, we could get that letter going.
Keep moving, right.
And then, if Joe has authorization to, be the sign off on that letter to the state, we'll get that off as soon as we can. We're still going through, we still have some other things that we have to go through. We're checking references now, and, but we have most of the information we need, but this would be the last piece so that we could do the cash flow.
Okay. Do you want to continue on with any other part of it, or do you want me to go to the board in terms of any further discussion on that item? Because, go ahead, Jeff.
Just if I could ask a question.
Oh,
Thanks,
sure.
Jeff, for being here, and fantastic with your estimates, and obviously I thank Robert B. Auer for doing their work. Just so I understand it correctly, if we were to bring this to a vote tonight, are we able to break this into two contracts? So contract 2W could be one standalone vote, and contract 1E would be a separate standalone vote, or are you looking to get them both voted on at the same time? If that makes any
No,
sense.
it makes sense. What I'm trying to think of is when we request from the state, it's all one state revolving fund loan. So I think our request is actually going to be for both contracts. So we'd be doing them both in one package to them because it's all for the,
Right.
plus or minus $50 million.
Got everything in the one letter, and
we-
you're submitting once. Yeah,
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that.
that makes sense. I mean, obviously, you want it to be all-encompassing and not have to go back and do it again.
But certainly, if you want to split them and we have a decision on one and we have to wait on the other until the 13th, we could do that as well. That's,
So if I may, stop me when I'm wrong, and I mean that sincerely. I believe with regard to 1E alternate 3, the scenario is such that the documents designed a gravity system, correct? With gravity as pump?
no,
Or-
it's, so the 1E project, the Walden Way neighborhood is,
So Walden Way is 2W.
oh, sorry. Oh, the 1E, Huckleberry Sadie's is designed as low pressure.
Low pressure grinder.
It's low pressure grinder.
So that would be what we would do going forward. To encapsulate that discussion, the former water wastewater superintendent thought there may have been a location for a pump station. We haven't had the opportunity to fully vet that. It's my understanding, now this is meant to be more of a governmental statement than an engineering statement, so not on Jeff, but on me. My understanding is that at least some of the neighbors in that area are already aware that there's going to be grinder pumps. So if we want to continue as is, and this is the statement I'd ask you to correct or change, if we want to go as is, you would be doing, you would be awarding 1E and all three alternates as presented. And
Understood.
so even though our preference is to go with gravity-fed pressure system pump stations, that would not be what alternate 3 1E gets to.
Thank you.
2W, definitely keep it out, is my recommendation, I think Jeff's as well, because the neighbors are saying we think there's space for a pump station.
Right.
And then last but not least, the reason why we're here tonight, April 29th, knowing that we're coming back on May 13th for you to do the award, is so we can get these letters together for the state, keep the process going, because it's all tied to the state revolving fund or SRF process, which if memory serves correctly, we have to have everything done by June 30, 2024.
So-
And that's where the urgency comes in, and that's where that letter comes in.
So just for clarification, the motion for this would be for contract 1E, all three alternates, alternate 1, 2, and
So
3.
If I may, Madam Chair, if it helps, I think what we were looking for from the board is a motion that would allow GHD Engineering to proceed towards an award of contract for 1E, all three alternates,
Okay.
and 2W, alternates 1 and
1
2.
and 2, right, okay. I just wanted to say
Yep,
that so that
absolutely.
Walden Way would come out entirely.
But
And-
not that you're making the
Right.
award.
Any other discussion, Jeff?
And that is what you would recommend, as you said earlier, if I heard you correctly, Jeff, is that Huckleberry Path and Sadie's Way is something we should seriously consider doing now instead of going around and around with this.
You've had, I mean, it was in the Phase 2 project, and it never really moved forward, and I think I mean, I would take it as my understanding was, since they weren't able to do a pumping station and the next opportunity was coming around, I think it was clear, I mean, I could be wrong, that it was gonna be ending up going that way if it was gonna be sewered. So, I guess at this point, I would say, without, having received any other through Dan or Joe receiving any other comments to the contrary, sticking with the discussions that we've even had with the board before when we talked about these neighborhoods, we talked about each one of these, including Old Carriage and others, about connecting them and how they were going to be connected. So I would say, you probably might as well, if you're going to be getting to sewer that area, you might as well, proceed.
Make a motion if,
I have no comments.
Question on the grinder systems, and
Sure.
and thanks for your time tonight.
Yep.
We obviously heard from one of our neighboring communities of some satisfaction with them, whether it was cost or implementation. Where do the systems stand today as far as relative to cost and performance?
So the system, grinder pumps are a very effective system of collection and wastewater. They're used all over the country. They've been used for years and years. It's not new technology. I think a lot of the discussion comes down to how towns and the public feel they should be either maintained, owned and operated. I think that's really where the bulk of the discussion is. There are places where you can't fit a pumping station, and if you have to sewer the areas to meet your TMDLs and do other things or address public need, you have to find a way to collect it, and so that's what grinder pumps allow you to do. So from that perspective, that's a lot of what the issue is. Now, I think some people are very concerned with them, and I think it's just some of it's fear of the unknown, and some of it is, there are costs with it. It is, everything has gotten more expensive over the past even 5 years or, since COVID. And every individual homeowner has a different situation with regards to their electrical system, what they have in their front yard, how you can get there. Some of the advantages of a grinder pump type system are you're not bound by terrain, and you're not bound. You can go around certain features. You want to avoid a tree, it's much easier to avoid with a grinder pump system than it is with a gravity sewer system. Gravity is very straight and angular and has to be maintained at slope, and pressure systems are a bit more malleable because it's a force main, it's pressurized, and it gives you some flexibility.
Rely on power, though?
But they do. They rely on power. They are, there's a number of, a number of different collection system technologies, and some rely on power and some don't. And obviously the preference is gravity because you're not thinking about it. But there are other people in the town of Harwich, I would imagine, that have pressure-dosed effluent disposal for their septic system. If their house was set up in a certain way, or they wanted to have a bathroom in their basement, they might have an ejector pump in their basement, and this really isn't all that different from that technology, except for it's designed to grind up wastewater versus just pass along clear liquid, or quote unquote clear liquid, you know what I mean. So I think that's what it comes down to. I believe the town has had discussions, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, with regards to the purchase of the grinder pump, which is a lot of where the cost is. for providing that to the owners. But I don't know how that, that's usually where the big debate is. So each of the communities, that's where they're having those discussions on who's paying for it.
Excellent segue for the government agent to take over. So the question of grinder pump policy and who acquires and all of that, that hasn't been finalized here in Harwich. I believe Phase 2, there were roughly 20 properties that were understood to need grinder pumps. There would be some obviously in Phase 3. So that is the next step. Now it's a policy, so it's a policy related to construction projects that has to come back before the board. So that policy would talk about who would purchase, who would maintain, who's responsible for what. I met earlier today with one of Jeff's colleagues, Mark Drainville, who's project director at GHD, about that and some other, general topics related to wastewater. And, that's the next big hurdle that we have to get into is they're out there for systems. How are we going to do it? How is the policy? So Mark and I talked about having that issue come back in earnest within the next 2 months to try to finally nail that down. So to the question of, we have not procured any. We have some funding that's available coming in as part through the borrowing that's going to take place on the general government side, not related to SRF. So all that's coming due in the next month or so. And so we'll be able to figure out how we want to procure, how much, if the town is procuring, do we have available, the liability statements, the liability waivers, and all of that. So the good news, I think, for right now is we're not committed to any one device or piece of equipment, but that will come soon enough.
Thank you, Joe. Any other? Did you have a follow-up?
No, I guess just to all of you, and probably may not be a surprise, it shouldn't be to Jeff, maybe the others. I'm not a proponent of more is better when it comes to sewering the town of Harwich. I understand we have criteria that we need to meet. I'm not sure that the 28 properties on Huckleberry and Sadie's is going to put us over the top. So if there's a chance to have gravity systems in place, that would be my preference. I understand that the bids are coming in lower than what was budgeted or at least anticipated, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the path we need to take tonight. Numbers add up, and yep, it's great to come in, almost $10,000, $10 million under what the thought process was, but, when you can come in even less than that, to me, it's a better thing. So anyway, it's my rambling to tell you that my preference would be to keep Huckleberry out of it, and clearly their conversation about keeping Walden out of it makes sense as well.
Any other comments from any board members?
If I may, based on what your colleague just said, so 1E alternate 3, that alternate designed low pressure, correct?
Correct.
So if we wanted to go pump station, we would take it out?
We take it out because you're going to spend probably more time trying to find a location. And I'm open to whatever the board, however the board wants to move forward with that.
And I only ask because I think the motion I mentioned earlier contemplated 1E all 3.
Sure.
So I just wanted to be clear, if you were going to go in that direction, it would be 1E, 1 and 2, 2W, 1 and 2.
Right, did you have a comment?
Yeah, my only comment, differing opinion on that is just, if we're gonna go buy it, it makes no sense to remobilize, and the cost savings now is far greater by picking it up as we go by. And today's mandate is not tomorrow's mandate. I've said that from day one. Right now, we're doing nitrogen. Sooner or later, it's gonna be other things.
Right.
So I believe we're gonna sewer a lot more of this town than is even in our plan now. So I support picking that up now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Jeff?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. I move that we approve GHD to proceed for an award of contract from the state for base bid of contract 1E as well as alternates 1, 2, and 3 as presented, as well as approve contract 2W, base bid, as well as alternates 1 and 2 only.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I'll just quickly, to Michael's comment, and not that I totally disagree, you could be 100% right on the cost factor. However, 2 years ago, sitting here, we wouldn't be at $41 million either. So it's in all likelihood you're correct, but not a guarantee.
No, I agree.
John,
Excuse me,
well, let me
Madam-
just finish
okay.
the vote, because you can make a comment, but we've got a motion and a second, so I'd like to finish out the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed.
Opposed. So 3-1. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't realize you were going to vote on it tonight. It didn't say that in the packet. But anyway, I just quick comments. You know, how much was allocated for these projects? John Chory, Harwich Board. How much money at town meetings were authorized for
So
this?
this is a borrowing going up to 50 million.
50 million was authorized. Okay, that's what I thought. And how long will Phase 3 just the construction portion of Phase 3 take, not the citizens hookup? And I know it's just a wild guess, but I'm just curious.
It's just over 2.5 years.
Okay. And I just want to commend GHD and the wastewater and water department. I mean, in this economy, everybody, I'm sure, was expecting these bids to come in much different than they did. And I just think, I know how much work went in by the wastewater and water commissioners, so thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank
Joe?
John, sorry, do you mind sticking around for a moment? I just want to be clear, make sure we're all on the same page. The essence of what the board just voted on was direction on the alternates, and that is what's on the agenda. It was not the award of contracts. So for tonight, they have discussion on all alternate options, so they've given direction for us to narrow those. In 2 weeks, they'll do the full award, and the notice will say about the full award.
Great, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to move forward with any other, or are you
Well,
good?
if I could, there is another item, as you heard Jeff mention. So we're progressing towards May 13th, but we're also working on, similar fronts or dueling fronts, if you will, with the state and their processes. So Jeff has taken the liberty of drafting a letter that we will send to the state, and in the urgency of time, I was hoping that you would allow me to send that on your behalf, working with Jeff, so we can get that out this week. Certainly be sharing with the board and you can speak better than I, because you wrote it, the substance of the letter is to inform the state of where we're at, and on behalf of the select board, we're moving in this direction. Please contact us with any questions, kind of a deal.
Do you need an official vote, or can we just give you that direction?
I think it's consensus about everyone's okay with that. And then last but not least, however, to be clear, the select board will be asked in 2 weeks to make the award of contract. Do not suggest anyone change that.
To have a consensus from the board to allow that letter to be signed by,
Yes.
Clarify this, there'll be 2 letters.
okay.
So the first letter, one of the letters is going to be a request to see if we can increase the contingency because you had such favorable bids and they fit in well underneath the amount that the state had put it across for SRF. And knowing the uncertainties, and there are other cost fluctuation factors that get carried in the contracts in terms of fuel and other aspects of it that could go up or down. We want to send them a letter that basically requests to see if we can ask for their SRF coverage on a large, usually after bids, they ask you to reduce their contingency to 5%, and we want to hold it at 10,
Okay.
which is what we would have prior to. So it gives you a little more flexibility. There are some things that came up, like the bathroom at Pleasant Bay East, where we have to put a bathroom at the pumping station, things like that. And then the other letter that will go shortly thereafter, because we'll probably end up following up with a call with Michelle Higgins on the first one, is the letter that says, hey, we'd like to get permission to award. And so the other discussion about the alternates helped us kind of frame that so that we know what we want to put in for the cash flow.
Okay, so 2 letters.
Correct, and if I could, to the question of contingencies, as Jeff said, and the select board member to my right, I think that sort of gets to the, you know, we have great numbers on the bids, but we're anticipating potential cost changes and things like that. So I think when Jeff and Mark came to me and suggested, rather than going down to the 5%, I do think a 10% contingency is smart, a conservative approach to go forward on.
Okay.
And that's what we're talking about in the letters.
So we have consensus from the board for you to sign both of those.
Thank you.
We can just get copies after the fact?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Jeff, anything else?
I did not have
All right.
anything else.
So as you stand, will you take a bow for the cost estimate?
Do I have to?
Not at all. No, thank you.
Then I won't be doing that.
Thank you very much,
It's part of
Jeff.
my job. No, we appreciate it, and we know how important this is to Harwich and to our clients. So we try to do the best we can, and we're very happy with the way it came out. So thank you very much.
So are we, thank you. Take that out? Oh, take it now.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks again, Jeff, for all your hard work.
Well, it was a team effort, so I want to make sure that, that I had a big project team that helped
Yeah,
do all this stuff, so.
well, you all did a fantastic
I
job.
get to receive the kudos, and I appreciate that, but it really does go to my team, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your time tonight. I'm going to
Chair, I'll
take,
be right back.
sure. I'm going to take item H out of order if the board doesn't have a problem with that, and that if I could get a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the following new license applications for Milano Hospitality Group, DBA Milano's Italian Kitchen, 278 Route 28. 1, an annual common viculars license. Number 2, an annual weekday entertainment license, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. inside and outside jukebox radio and television. And 3, annual Sunday entertainment, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. inside and outside jukebox radio and television.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
The only comment would just be on the outside entertainment, being in the neighborhood that you're in. We have had complaints from that part of town, keep the volume down on the outside. We have to abide by that 150 foot rule. But congratulations, looks great.
Yeah, it's moving along and looking great.
Looking forward to trying it out, so thank you.
Madam Chair, I heard a motion in a second. I did not hear a
I
vote.
know.
Sorry,
I
thank
didn't take the vote yet. We were congratulating prior to, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, official congrats.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I move.
Yep, go ahead.
Yep, I move that we vote to approve the proclamation announcing June be Harwich Pride Month. And I believe
Second.
we have someone in the audience.
Moved and seconded, yep. Josh? or- Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. I had just...
Just your name.
Josh Winston.
Thank you.
My, I had authored this a couple of years ago now, I think. And we wanted to just revisit it again as it comes up annually every year for in the month of June. And I don't know that it's terribly controversial, but it, in recent years, has taken on a little bit of a different edge than I think Pride had always done in the past. And so we wanted to really kind of make the language clear and make sure that it asserts that, it's really about the pride in our town, pride in our community. It's vastly inclusive of everybody, whoever they be, from our teachers and law enforcement and, school kids, tourists, whoever that is that's in our community. We want to make sure everybody feels welcome and accepted. And so that is really the crux of it. It's really pretty simple. I think the way it's authored kind of speaks to all of that. We can certainly add additional language if we want to expand upon that, but the idea is to make it less political, less divisive, and more inclusive and more about our town and the pride in our community as a whole rather than any one specific group. So
And it's a great message, so thank you.
glad
So,
anything we can do to help.
Get a
So,
Thank you,
second?
Josh. Do we have a second?
Moved and seconded. No discussion, anybody? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Thank you, Josh. Next item.
It's a discussion and possible vote on the personnel bylaw, part-time classification and compensation table.
Oh, wait a minute, didn't
Did we skip a couple?
we
Oh,
skipped a
did I
few.
skip one?
Yeah, yeah, that's, yeah. I thought we were moving quite quickly.
Okay.
So
Two, I think.
we're
Vote to
B.
designate a select board member to
No,
present the
So we gotta go to
proclamation.
B, discussion on finance committee meeting.
I'm just skipping all over the
Yeah,
place. All right, well then, I move that we have a discussion.
yeah, thank you. So for the public, discussion on the finance committee meeting that was held on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. There was an error in the machinery, I believe, in the small public meeting room. And so the meeting was not recorded, so it's not available to the public. So the board was requesting that FinCom have another meeting so that could be recorded. I'm not sure if FinCom is going to do that. I see Mark Kelleher from FinCom. Do you have any comments on that, Mark?
Mark Kelleher, West Harwich Finance Committee. I spoke to the chair last night. He didn't mention that. Other than that, we were going to have some revotes on the evening, the first evening. But beyond that, he asked that he be called. That's all I know.
So I did call the chair. I called Peter
Okay,
on Friday and left a lengthy voicemail, but I didn't hear anything back.
okay.
So I can certainly give him another call, and if he would just pass along that I'm trying to get in touch with him.
Yeah, okay. And as I said, we do plan on some revotes on Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael?
Madam Chair, thank you for putting this on the agenda. Last week, when we questioned Finance Committee members what was talked about and what was voted, they had no recollection. I said I would watch the tape. The next morning, I found that the tape didn't exist and that there was possibly an error in the machine. I would ask who took the notes of that meeting, because I'm still trying to understand what was voted. And simply voting ahead of town meeting doesn't allow for the conversation and discussion that should be had now. So I would ask that we request the minutes from that meeting so we know and the public knows what was voted. The fact that we don't have it tonight, I could only imagine if that was us.
Yeah, no, I hear you and I agree.
But re-voting the night of town meeting doesn't give anybody any time to have conversation about it. So who in the meeting took the notes? I guess that's a question. Who took the minutes?
Mark Kelleher again. The chair took the minutes. I have seen minutes typed up, and so I don't know what the process. Mr. Hughes may need to approve it, and maybe he already has, but Peter Hughes, the chairman, took the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mark.
And those minutes would normally be voted, so I would imagine.
So we nor the public
Have the minutes.
on votes taken by the Finance Committee have no information.
So I will be following up with an additional phone call, and as I asked Mark, please share that I'm trying to touch base with Peter, because for that reason, it would either be another meeting or that FinCom passes along the minutes. Okay, on to our next item.
I move that we vote to designate a select board member to present the proclamation at the Memorial Day ceremony.
So just to share.
So would you add Don Howell to that
Yeah,
motion?
add Don
I move
Howell.
that we vote to designate select board member Don Howell to present the proclamation at the Memorial Day ceremony.
Second.
Moved and seconded. And for the record, Don is in favor of doing this, so we're not blindsiding him, so. All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Now we can go to E.
Yes, Madam Chair. I move-
Madam Chair, in your packet, you'll see that there's a memorandum from the Assistant Town Administrator to me as Town Administrator. I had asked the Assistant Town Administrator to, as we've been doing our deep dives into the personnel bylaws, to spend some time looking at the class and compensation table that relates to part-time positions. So many of them are within range, but there's one key item that, and one key position that has not been evaluated in more than 7 years, and that is the videographer position. And so we know that anybody that has been in that role, present company included, without giving names, Matt does a great job. But this is really intended to bring our class and compensation tables up to date. I think the Assistant Town Administrator did a thorough job on reviewing it, and I support her recommendation and ask you to support the changes to the part-time personnel bylaw classification and compensation table as laid out in the memo.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions from board members?
My only question is, why wouldn't the job title, well, I guess the job title below is nothing. Never mind. No questions.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
So I have one question,
Oh,
Madam
go
Chair.
ahead, sure.
So, Joe, is this something that town admin did, or, and that was the genesis of why we're looking at this particular department right now?
So, yes, but this also came out of a conversation with the Harwich Channel Director regarding personnel generally, and as part of administration's ongoing evaluation of the personnel bylaws.
Understood. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Yes, I move that we accept the change in the personal bylaw part-time classification and compensation table as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you.
And now, F?
I move, do you want to do F? I move that we vote to approve a fee waiver for tent permit inspections for the Harwich Children Funds event, Circus Schmirkus, in the amount of $450.
Thank you. Get a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
My only question is, there was a $450 amount put in there, and then there was discussion in there about electrical inspections. Can you just tell me if the $450 is for the tent or for the inspections?
Sure.
Slow moving, apologize.
Take your time.
Okay. Angelina Radio, Chilaka, and I'm representing the Harwich Children's Fund. On the plus side, I would like the Select Board to know all of our administrators in town, starting with our town administrator across the board, have been absolutely wonderful. Julie's been our liaison, so it's to our credit to our town. So I just wanted you to know that. Anyway, I knew that we had to fill out some permits, and I'm learning an awful lot. The tent permit, I got through that one to the best of my ability, and Mr. Mead was very kind. He said, you know, that's good. I explained everything about the Harwich Children's Fund. That was, and it ended up coming up to $450. The electrical one, you need a PhD to fill that one out. So we're going to have an electrician figure out what we actually need to do and what that will cost. So right now, it is purely for the tent. Okay? And we realize it's a tough decision because when I went online, it's really like for a homeowner, and it didn't make any distinctions between, okay, this is the town property. So I said I'd take a chance and at least ask you. And I realize, you know, I'm setting precedent and things like that. So I just took a shot at it. And whatever you decide, fine, we'll go with it. But pretty much that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Thank you,
And before you sit down, thank you for all your work and effort with this.
Yeah.
For the public, would you just tell everybody where the money goes that you raise?
Yeah, we are really excited. We're a Harwich Children's Fund, and we're made up pretty much of retired teachers, administrators, community members, and we realized there was a need for a lot of our children in the town. And teachers were always used to taking money out of our own pocket. So we started the Children's Fund, and it has actually worked out quite well, where we're able to give money all year long, 365 days a year, to children in need in the Montgomery Regional School District, pre-K through 12. And we also give a large chunk of money over to the Harwich Recreation Department so that children in need can also attend. So 100% of all money that we raise goes back to the children in our town or in the Monomoy Regional School District.
Which is amazing and super important for the public to understand.
You said 100%.
100%. Nobody gets paid for anything. We're doing all volunteer, and we love it. We actually love it.
If I, one more. For the town administrator, just for my own knowledge, what goes into a tent inspection? And how much time and effort does our staff go out and inspect? Is it 3 tents, I understand?
There are 3 tents.
3 tents? So it's,
not insignificant.
yep,
And of course, when you're talking about the purposes of that tent, we want to make sure that our regulatory officers are ensuring that they're installed properly, they have the height clearances and all that. So they spend a fair amount of time going
Absolutely.
through it.
Yep.
It
I'm just
is-
wanting
it
to
is
get everything
thorough.
out there.
Yeah.
I have to look at the structure.
Sure,
because it's-
sure, I get it. I just, like I said, I
If
want
may,
everything to be
Madam
out there.
Chair- Madam Chair used the proper word. We do consider those tents at that time to be structures.
Thank you.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait, Michael has a question. Did you?
No, I was just going to mention that with the cost associated with it, everyone knows how I feel about fee waivers. I would certainly be willing to vote half, but not the full amount. That's my last comment.
Okay, and you didn't make the second, right? Pete, did you?
Pete
made the second.
Pete made the second. So the motion currently is for the full waiver of $450. So I'm going to go with that motion first. All in favor of waiving the complete fee of $450?
Aye.
3-0.
Opposed.
Okay, so 3-1.
Oh, well, thank you very much. You made our day.
You're welcome.
I hope to see you at the circus.
Definitely will.
Anoint you I'm Sheila House
Are
of
you
the
setting
Second.
us up?
So you're all going to get a clown nose.
Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, really? I don't know that we needed the props. I
Yeah.
think that's what, you know.
Thank you.
Can we revisit this motion?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheila. Appreciate that.
Can you give one to Deputy Chief Constable?
Sheila, you already gave me one? I did. And I wore it during the budget, so if you want to pass that around.
Thank you. Discussion on traffic.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just my own, I guess, pet peeves. Obviously, you know, I voted for this. I tend to lean Michael's way and I resist fee waivers, but obviously great organization. But that's not my issue. Really, it talks, the agenda says vote to approve. My preference would just see that, you know, just indicate that we're going to vote on a fee waiver, not necessarily we're going to approve it. And that goes for anything. I know there was something about vote to approve the proclamation as well. It's indicating that we're voting to approve it when it's up to us to have that discussion whether we're going to approve it or not. And so it may be wordsmithing, but in my opinion, it should stay neutral on the agenda.
I think that normally, and this is just my recollection, I'm not saying it's factual, but, I mean, if we're going to consider approving something, otherwise, it would take a positive motion, otherwise, we wouldn't do anything. We wouldn't vote to deny it.
I agree, although the motion could be defeated.
By not making a motion.
Correct.
Right.
Again, and I think I've seen some inconsistencies with it. That would be my preference. Again, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
speak for the
fine. I
board.
mean, we can,
So it's my own 2 cents.
no, that's good.
If I can be a thorn in your side. Thank you.
No
Thanks for
problem.
listening.
So item G, which is, Michael, if I'm going to ask you to talk about this because this was one you wanted on the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this on. This is meant to be a high-level conversation on the Queen Anne Road 124 intersection, Queen Anne Road Main Street intersection, and Queen Anne Road and Depot intersection. And relative to the Marceline property, we're not calling it the Marceline property
56.
anymore, the Affordable Housing Trust property on 124, where we're contemplating
456 Queen Anne Road is now the
56
address.
Queen
they
Anne
use.
Road?
Yep.
Where we're contemplating a housing project on that land. We have been presented, not officially yet, but I think it's official enough to start talking about it, with upwards of 250 units on Queen Anne Road. There's also the junkyard, old junkyard, which is ultimately going to be a large commercial. Nothing's proposed there yet, but we have to at least vision that something of size is going to be there. And the old Eagle Pond Nursing Home, though it's not in our town, is going to be 73 units of housing. And all of those cars are going to converge on a fairly small area. And Queen Anne Road, upwards of 12 to 1,500 cars a day go to that dump in the summertime. So I guess the question of the board is, are we going to sit back and wait for someone to propose a project to look at their traffic study and look at them all individually? Or should we contract the help of the Cape Cod Commission and start looking at this more globally before it happens, so we know what to ask for if they ask our opinion of what they want, and we know what to at least be able to argue or fight if we need to. But I think at this point, we're just sitting back waiting for all this to happen. And so far, there's been one traffic study done, and reading through the 166 pages, it was done on two days' worth of data. And though that might be how the commission does it, I think we need to take a real look at what's going to happen to those intersections and those roads if all three of these projects and possibly a fourth go through. So I'm asking the board to support administration reaching out to the commission and having some entry-level conversations with them on what's available to us before we're creating another emergency by trying to solve one.
Thank you, Michael. Other board members have any comments?
I agree.
Great idea.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think the only point I would make, I don't have a problem with having that discussion. I guess it's just difficult not knowing. We know some, right? We just don't know everything right now because the trust's RFP, is it out yet?
On 456 Queen Anne?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did it go out?
Yeah, it went out
yet?
last Thursday.
Okay, so it's due back, when is it due back?
I believe the end of May.
End of May,
Yep.
okay. So, I mean, we don't even know much on that yet, but.
No, but I think the study could tell us what the current volume is and what those roads are designed to handle at max capacity. And
Yeah.
then that information we have going forward, to Michael's point, when somebody brings a plan forward, whether or not those existing conditions are gonna handle the impact.
And remind me on the other address on Queen Anne, I can't recall it, where the Doan with all of those properties. I don't remember the address.
250, 251? You mentioned it in our meeting. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's the far end
The
of Queen
far
Anne Road.
end.
Far
Yeah.
end of Queen Anne.
Yeah, by the power lines.
Yeah. Do you remember who did that specifically? And,
The traffic study?
yeah,
I have it. I can get it to you.
okay. No, I know we had it. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to remember who did that,
Yeah.
So is it the consent, yep, sorry, Joe.
Oh, no, if I may, what I heard is, working with the Cape Cod Commission, and the areas that I got, I would like to be able to refer to it as a traffic study of volume and potential future impacts on the villages of Pleasant Lake and North Harwich, emanating around Queen Anne, Main Street, and Depot, if that makes sense.
And 124.
And 124, thank you, I had that in here. So that, because I'm in regular communication with the commission, I'd also like to bring in Steve Rhodes, love that name, at VHB on this, and look to my colleagues in public safety who may have that. And we also have Traffic Safety Committee if you want to have them be a part of it. But I'd like to be able to talk about that in the terms of those areas and those villages, and I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and if there's any other resources, I like the ones you mentioned. But
Yep.
if the commission can't do it, I do believe this board really needs to get somebody involved before they all start, and then we fix the problem after we create it. There's one more thing on this topic, but I will yield to the deputy chief for now.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Considine. You mentioned Depot. If we're thinking of Queen Anne Road, I would recommend the other depot or towards 39 as well. We had that traffic study out there twice that the state did not agree with and came back with the same findings of the same speed limit. So that has been an issue as well in that area. And if any cars travel east, half these cars can go east Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll
And-
couple that in. with-
Yeah, and just, Joe, to add to that, the entry from the old exit 10, there's a very short lane to get out onto that highway, so that needs to be part of this study as well. State needs to be involved, but if you get on the highway heading to Hyannis, that lane ends fairly quickly at that bridge. So we're gonna be putting an awful lot of more cars on that highway too, so state should be involved.
So I have North Harwich, Pleasant Lake, Route 124, Depot in North Harwich, and then Depot in South Harwich, right? And the state. Did I miss any?
No, I think they'll get the idea.
Yep.
Plenty of roads. And then I would ask that the town administrator get back to the board regularly on the conversations at least, and how this process is gonna go, so we don't start it when this project lands in our lap. Julie, one more thing on that, and I mentioned the old Eagle Pond Nursing Home. They are seeking waivers from the town of Dennis. They may have already gotten them to build that out to 73 units. And I know in speaking to the purchaser of that some of that for the time being will be migrant housing. I know that's in Dennis, but our fire department responds, and that's also gonna cloud that intersection more. So I'd be looking to have a seat at the table in Dennis where we can at least ask what the plan is on fire calls and everything else. That's gonna cost us a fair amount more money than it does now, so I think, and the traffic is an issue. So I think we need to get a sense of what they're doing and what they're planning on their own volume of cars coming out of there at this point. So the ask would be for the town administrator to talk to his counterpart in Dennis, figure out what's going on, and at least a board member or two be able to meet with Dennis and at least say what our concerns may be.
I also tried to reach out. I didn't hear anything back to Housing Assistance Corporation, so. Kevin?
Deputy Chief Considine, if it's any help, we were invited to Dennis PD for their town meeting, just with their group from Town Hall, strictly regarding traffic, because the police department brought up concerns about traffic, and they heard them, and we did that. So they did this traffic study there. I believe I have it. And not only fire calls, we were concerned about police calls there too, because police and fire will be the first to get to that location if they call, or if we hear anything. We're going to be the first to go as well.
Thank you, and I would just say it again. Their traffic study didn't contemplate what's about to happen on Queen Anne Road and 124, so, and that's where towns talking to each other makes a lot of sense when there's projects that are going to interfere with our town.
And Kevin, would you share that traffic study with us if you have it? Thank you.
Quickly, Kevin, was that at the intersection? You don't get up, I can give you a response.
I'd have to look at it again. I don't know if they got to that intersection on that one. It was mainly the number of cars that we were concerned on the street as opposed to the former use. But Michael's right. It was strictly just transitional housing for homeless at that time. So that numbers may have changed.
Okay, thank you. Any other items on that discussion? And we already did H. And now we're under old business, discussion on annual town meeting warrant and all articles therein. Is there any?
Madam Chair, if I could, I believe you all were working on the article roster and which board members were going to have which articles, so I know staff shared that. Were there any changes, or?
I haven't received any changes. Does anyone have any changes? No? Okay.
Thank
I
you.
don't think I have it with me. Any other discussion on any articles from the public? Oh, Joe?
So not from the public, but Article 21, which was the conservation restriction that we were working with Harwich Conservation Trust. We were expecting that to not be able to go forward. However, I heard from Mike Locke at Harwich Conservation Trust late last week And right before the deadline, we were able to submit a grant application.
Great.
So it looks like we'll have a positive motion, which was what was originally conceived of, and both Select Board and Finance Committee were aware of. So hopefully, there'll be a positive motion on Article 21 as we wait to hear back on the grant application.
Great, thank you. Do you have an ETA on how long that takes?
Their schedule says, I think, by June.
Okay.
We would still, because the application was submitted, we would still want the article to go
Right,
forward.
of course.
That's
right.
our proof of support.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else on any articles?
I believe Mr. Sutphen stayed to talk about Article 37.
Well, thank you. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to. Thank you. Matt Sutphen, Harwich Center. I don't want to beat the dead horse here, but it feels, it's feeling like a dead horse, and I was hoping to revive some possible reconsideration on the Finance Committee's part and your part, because it's a little bit of money in the big scheme of things, but it suggests a willingness to spend a little bit of money with reasonably little value for it. I can't, it suggests that there's no differentiation between wants and needs. It seems like everything that anybody wants, they get without any laboring as to whether or not it's really a need. And I would say that certainly the library has benefited well by the generosity of the town. But there's a point where maybe the library should stop benefiting from the generosity of the town. And I would say reconstructing the streetscape, cutting down some nicely established trees, would be a good place to stop, not doing that. I'm under the impression, and I hope that if the town decides they want to do this, the town voters want to do this, my hope is that the Historical Commission, which I understand has the responsibility for the streetscape, will nix it. I mean, it's definitely sanitizing history by anybody's yardstick, introducing something new. It's like, oh, my car's 3 years old, I got to buy a new one. You know, so that's where I am on it. It suggests that the towns want to spend money easily, and that scares me a little bit.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, and I would just offer a differing opinion. I think that the town and the we that you're speaking of is everybody that pays taxes in this town, and everybody has the right to go to town meeting and cast their vote up or down. So I'm not sure how many of the trustees meetings that you went to, or how many finance committee meetings you went to, and how many Board of Selectmen meetings when this topic was being discussed. But we've had it on our agenda at least 5 times. Library trustees would have had to vote this themselves to bring this forward. Not sure if you went and expressed that on that level. But I can't imagine people bringing projects before us and us just killing them in this room. And the library, as you said, and it would be interesting if we talk about, well, the Brooks is not on there, so we can't talk about that, but what's your level of stop on any project that may not be important to you? I personally think that the library, we've invested millions. That is a staple building in our center of town. It is an absolute gem that we have spent a lot of money bringing back, like we are doing with Brooks Academy. So we should stop now at the last 25,000. We've already, the townspeople have voted, and I think it was unanimous, on the $90,000 in 2019. So now we're bringing back $25,000 to finish it. And then I would completely disagree with your statement the other night about the shape of the bricks in front of that building. And having those kids walking across the crosswalk and walking on that, and seniors coming in and out of that. I completely disagree, and I think that landscape that they're doing and the plan that they have there will be absolutely beautiful, and I certainly will vote yes on that.
We'll just agree to disagree on that. It would suggest that if that surface makes you anxious, you not visit Nantucket. Because it just seems like it's just too little remedial work for the number. And, you know, this 25,000 is new money. It's not money that you talked about several years ago. And it may be better spent somewhere else. And I know I'd like to see the paint on Brooks Academy instead of seeing some trees cut down.
So, if I may, Madam Chair?
You should, yeah.
It's not new money, so it was appropriated by town meeting to the library. It's a new idea. So the money exists in something that's already been voted for the library by the taxpayers. And as far as Brooks goes, we've already spent $2 million on that. There's another $1 million to spend, which happens to be by way of paint. But we weren't given the information in a way that, and people weren't communicating on that. So we've been asked by our facilities maintenance to pause on it while we don't waste any more of your money by having 3 different architects or different people come in and different estimates so that we can get an actual plan together. Everybody's intention is to paint Brooks, but I certainly wouldn't support painting it now and then tearing it apart to do other work that needs to be done and then painting it again.
No, I understand. I read, in fact, that you need a foundation for the elevator before you can move forward. So I get all that. I think you're just missing the point. My big point is there are 2 trees standing there that look just great. They're rippling a little bit of the sidewalk, and this town wants to go out and ask for more money to do the remedial work on that. As far as I'm concerned, you know, the Brooks Library trustees could give the money back to the town. They've got it. I realize anybody that gets a hold of some money, it's hard for them to want to give it back. But I would challenge them to give that $90,000 back to you for housing, the elderly, whatever. You'll think of something. And it's a logical thought on my part. You don't need to spend the money. It's not a need. It's a want. If the town benefits from 40% of the town, I believe, more or less, pays taxes here, but requires services 3 months of the year. You've got a huge resource out there compared to other towns. It doesn't mean it all needs to get spent.
So
And that's my bottom line.
I'm just going to ask you, if you're done with your comments, to allow Linda Sabula, who's behind you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Linda Sabula, I'm the chair of the Brooks Free Library Trustees. Michael, thank you for your comments on this is not new money. This is not money coming out of free cash. It is not coming from a debt borrowing. It is not coming out of the budget. That $25,000, thank you very much for noting that, is from an old article that the trustees decided that we should put it towards this project. And I also appreciate that you mentioned that the $90,000 for the sidewalk is also an existing article already voted by town meeting. Both of these funds have already been set aside. This is not new money. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you, Linda. Any other discussion on any other articles or this article? Hearing nobody, I think we'll move on.
We did get from finance tonight the updated sources and uses.
That's the next item.
Gets put on the town website so
Right.
taxpayers can get it.
Is there any discussion on sources and uses? Does anyone have any questions? Kathleen's here. That's item B under old business. Hearing none, we'll just make sure that that information is posted.
So, Madam Chair, if I could.
Sure.
I believe there was information in the packet. I think what the member's referring to is updated information, is that correct?
Well, the packet, it was cut off, so we just want to
Oh,
make sure
okay.
that this gets posted and to the website.
Thank you.
C, discussion. Oh, sorry, Jeff, I was taking your job.
No, you can talk, I'm sorry, thank you, Madam Chair. I believe we're going to have a discussion, a possible vote on the herring celebration to be held Sunday, May 12th, 2024.
Good evening, Brad Chase, State Division of Marine Fisheries.
I'm gonna let Brad do it.
Yeah, okay.
Well, really, I'm just going to say hello, and I'm here to answer questions and just describe the division's interest to having a festival and contributing if the town wishes. So we have discussed it a few times. I think if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them and just discuss the topic.
Just give that quick overlay that you gave me about what you're planning for that day.
Sure. So the division goes to the West Reservoir twice a week to check the electronic herring counter. And what we could do is set up a table, give out educational information on the herring run, the life history of herring, the past management of the river herring run, and show folks the electronic counter, show them some eels, show them herring, and just have an educational forum. So we're happy to do that if the town wants. I did discuss it with the Conservation Department and Conservation Commission, and Amy's not available, I think, that weekend. So there is some question whether the Mother's Day is a good target, so we probably should talk about that. But if the town wishes, we can set up an exhibit whenever the town would like. It'd be nice to have other folks involved, reach out maybe to Harwich Conservation Trust, but it can just be the division if that's the way it goes as well. I think we had something like this maybe 7 years ago, and it was just very much an educational forum for 3 or 4 hours, and people brought their kids by and talked about the herring run. It was that simple.
Thank you, Brad. I mean, I just recall the discussion back in February where we talked about trying to do a nice big celebration that would be sort of for the town, and that would be a bigger event. And Don Yanuzzi asking us to not move forward with that at that time. In terms of if it's a separate event where it's run by, you know, the Division of Marine Fisheries and it's not dependent upon the town, because our staff's not available and we're not prepared, because obviously that was the discussion back in February. And yeah, Mother's Day, I know that Amy is out of town and I don't think Dawn's available.
Right.
And then I think there was discussion about any kind of cooking, but it doesn't sound like you're talking about any, because any kind of cooking would require permits from health and then an event permit, et cetera. So
Right.
we just want to make sure that it's organized in the fashion that it would have to be.
Sure.
I'm all for it. I think the fact that they've done all the work that you've done in getting that so that we can then make the decision to open it,
Right.
hopefully by next year. But I think that it warrants having it open and having a day where we educate the public. And I've talked to several people that are very interested in it. So
Okay.
I think you might be right. Maybe we should push it off one weekend and not get on the Mother's Day routine. And then I would say any of our staff that wants to come should be allowed to come, but voluntarily.
Sure.
Harwich Conservation Trust, I think, would be very interested in being there.
Right.
And
They
I certainly will volunteer and be there and get as many people as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, they came by last time we did this. Our agency participates in Pembroke. They have a herring festival. We already participated in Middleborough. They had a wonderful herring festival, and one in Plymouth as well. So we're used to doing this. This would be, I think, probably a small-scale event for this year if it happens. Next year, I'd encourage bringing in everybody and making it a big celebration.
And the only other concern I would have, which I believe was Dawn's concern back in February, was that in having an event, in the misconception that the herring is open for fishing, which then we get into a enforcement,
Right.
which was one of his points back in February in terms of
Yeah.
this wouldn't be supported currently by staff because they haven't had the time to prepare. So even a week doesn't help them. So
Yeah.
those are my points from the last discussion, but
Yeah, it's a fair comment. I think there is a fair amount of education already occurring. There's staff out there 7 days a week to check the counter, and we talk to people every day. Every day we're out there, we bump into people and we talk about the status. There's an approved harvest plan, but the town hasn't decided to execute that plan yet. So I think there's a fair amount of discussion. Some folks have jumped the gun with poaching. I've heard about it happening in other places and Harwich, but it's pretty small scale. So I think it wouldn't hurt just getting the word out there and talking to folks and hearing what people feel. We haven't really had a public discussion yet on how people feel about harvest, so it would be good to start that discussion that way as well. So it's really, it's the favor of the board if you want to go forward or not. I do think that weekend's a little tricky. We all need to pay tribute to moms. So I'd be in trouble if I did that on that Sunday.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say I think this sounds like a much different ask than the ask in that meeting back in February, I think that you're referring to. My point back then was there can't be a yes without a how. And it sounds to me like this is a much smaller, well-organized, I guess, event, for lack of a better word. And as long as it stays small and stays, you know, I can see supporting this.
So, is anyone, I mean, currently, I just want to make it very clear that this would not be a town event. Staff isn't going to be at it. They're not required to be at it. Based on our previous discussion in February, I love the idea of the events that you described, a big kickoff so that the whole town is aware. And, you know, maybe by then we are fishing, right? But, I mean, I just think that we have to move cautiously, and the right permits have to be in place even for an event, as far as I know, though don't quote me on that. That would be the powers to be that decide what is required for permitting.
19th,
Is that a Sunday or a Saturday?
Sunday.
Yeah, I think that weekend is good for me, and it could be either day, but yeah, I think it's, the alewives are running hard now, but the bluebacks will come in the middle of May, so we want to have some fish. So I think a 3 or 4 hour event on that Sunday would be a good idea, just to educate folks and answer questions.
I move that we vote to approve a herring celebration to be held Sunday, May 19th of 2024.
Second.
I would ask for the clarification that
That is
it's
not a town-based event,
overseen by Division of...
overseen by the Division of Fisheries.
I second that.
Okay, moved
Just
in.
say that I don't see the same complication. We talked about this now for 2 years in a row, and I really, really hope that we don't get back to this table next year, 2 months before the herrings start running again, to hear that we're not going to issue permits for this, with all the work that went into it. So that's only a hope. I guess I want to clarify, if our conservation agent, whom does not work on Sunday, or Don, whom does not work on Sunday, want to go, they can't go, because they're a representative
No,
of Harwich?
of course they can go.
Okay.
I'm just saying they're not required to be there because we spoke in February
Yep.
about it and gave a
Yep.
totally different direction. And I would say that the only conversation we've had about having a celebration such as this came in February. The previous discussions on the herring and the improvement, which was wonderful news, and the history that we received, that's been over the last couple of years, but that was just talking about as things were improving and the numbers were up. We never talked about at those times opening it up or celebrating. We just talked about how it was great to see these improvements. So I'm just making that clarification for the public, because I know you know that. And
If I may, we did talk about opening it up 2 years ago, and then this year.
We
We just
talked-
weren't ready to do it.
exactly, we
Okay.
weren't ready to do it. And so currently, even in
clarify.
February, we weren't ready to do it based on staff input. So that was my clarification.
I'll work with you. We'll put an outline together, and
Right. And if,
Moved and seconded.
yeah, if I may have one more
Sure, go ahead, Brad.
additional point, I serve on the Conservation Commission. We have a meeting on Wednesday. I'll bring it up under new business that, whatever the outcome is, and I'll invite the members to attend and participate if they wish.
Thank you. So moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you.
thanks.
Bill, I'll get you the outline.
And
I move to contracts,
Yeah,
Madam Chair?
thank you.
Sure. I move that we approve a change order request from JJS Universal Construction Company in the amount of $5,040 for work on the Brooks Free Library roof.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we approve a one-year lease agreement with Seacoast Harley Davidson in the amount of $5,000 for a motorcycle for the police department.
Second for discussion?
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
I don't know if Deputy Considine wants to inform the board what he was kind enough to reach out to me last week and give me an update.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Considine. This is a lease for 3 years, so every year there's a $5,000 payment, so this would be year one, and I believe it's voted every year before that payment is made on that lease. To talk to Pete, I'd like to look at in the future, obviously not this coming budget year, but possibly buying out that lease, so it is our bike, so we're not doing this lease every 3 years. I think that will be a benefit to the town that I'm strongly looking at. But for now, this is a huge asset to our department, and I ask you to support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. 4-0, Joe.
I move that we approve and authorize the chair to sign an intermunicipal agreement, an IMA, from Barnstable County to dredge Allen Harbor Channel and Witchmere Harbor Channel at the rate of $12 per cubic yard.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. And now what? Thank you. Town Administrator's report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very briefly, so you started your evening with a presentation from GHD on the Phase 3 construction. You know, what we were staring down was a $50 million public works project, so great news on that. I mentioned that we are pursuing a general obligation, or GO bonds as we call them, for just over $7 million, and that requires a bond rating. So we are cautiously optimistic that we will hear later this week about the bond rating. And of course, the directive on the bond rating call was that the town is looking to retain its AAA. So as we head into town meeting, we're hoping that the good news continues, and we'll know more as we head into town meeting.
Great, thanks, Joe.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Select Board members report. Pete?
Not a report, but, and I apologize for not picking up on this sooner, but Kathleen was kind enough to send us a document related to the town's reserve funds. And I'm wondering if she wants to just take a minute to kind of highlight what she brought to us. And I'm sorry I didn't find it earlier when we talked about the town meeting.
Sure, Kathleen?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Kathleen Barrett, Finance Director. Thank you. Yes, there was a small notation in just a memo I had attached with the packet for this week with respect to reserve funds. There was some discussion about purpose and use of the reserve fund, and just, you know, the state, it's always, Mass General Law is the best resource instead of ad-libbing. So I did indicate that the specific statute says it's to provide for extraordinary or unforeseen expenditures. So I just wanted that to be, and give the specific, you know, chapter and section, because there was a fair amount of discussion about that, and just, you know, for everyone's benefit, sometimes it's a little bit confusing as it's a budgeted item. Sometimes it gets thought it could be kind of in the same category as other budgeted items. So I just wanted to just clarify that a little bit.
Oh, that was helpful information.
Yeah, and we are, just to be clear, which I think you're aware of, it was voted by the Finance Committee to use approximately $23,000 of it for the harbor master for replacement of an engine for their boat due to, it's very unforeseen, the water jacket is no longer valid. So, and that really does serve the purpose. It helps give the harbor master's budget, you know, enough room, and they can continue with their operations uninterrupted.
Thank you. No,
Of
that's
course.
helpful. Did you have any other
Yeah,
questions,
if I could,
Pete?
before you go, I'm trying to find it, sorry, but I think there was, in your note, you talked about you're gonna need a little bit of time after town meeting to extract some additional data.
For the revolving funds.
Yeah,
Yes.
are we talking weeks, we talking months, how long?
No, I started the process. I did just the recreation expenditures. It's about 20 pages of about 5 font. It's a lot of information. It's every single expenditure that has been recorded through the recreation revolving fund. That's just where I started. for the last 5 years. And to make it actually, useful information, there's a great deal of additional information that has to be hand typed in because these aren't the kind of reports that usually generate, that come out clean, as it were. So you have to actually indicate what the name of every account is for every expenditure. So, and the revolving fund for recreation has 5 at least categories. And, so there's a lot to it. So in order for it to be like useful information, it does take a bit of time. I anticipate probably like right before town meeting, it may not be useful, but I'll put it in the packet. We can either do it for that week or the subsequent week, so there's, time to review it, without everyone needs to focus on town meeting, so.
Yep, no, agreed.
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss it. I did include a summary of the most recent activity, so you could kind of see revenue and expenses charged to each revolving fund for this year.
Right. No, which is great, but I agree that, having your team and yourself take the appropriate time to get us a comprehensive review would be perfect. And so if it's only a matter of weeks, that's fine.
Yeah.
And lastly, before I let you go, and I'm sure there's probably isn't much you can do, but the Muni report, and I'll describe it, I'll describe it as the left-hand column descriptions, obviously very abbreviated. Is that something that can be expanded, or you're pretty much restricted on what you can do there?
Yeah, it's unfortunately, it's kind of an issue with Munis insofar as there's only so many characters allowed in the fields, and it's not like you can really expand them. And because that's how all that information is captured, even if I download it to Excel, I don't get any more data. So you'd have to kind of like hand type all the account names again.
And again, we don't need to go down this rabbit hole in much greater detail, but are you able to eliminate the most left-hand columns, or you need that in order to extract the data?
The account numbers?
Well, yeah, it looks like, I assume they all have the same account number, so is that just because they're kind of the selectmen's?
So I believe those are the organization and object codes
Yes.
that you're referring to.
So they need to remain in order to extract the data?
No, they don't. I can,
One of that, it would open up great fields. And some of them I can easily identify what the description means, but others obviously would require a lot of research, and not that I'm not willing to do it. It's gonna
sure,
take me some
sure.
time.
And I think, and I don't want to assume, but I think you're referring to the report that was included, that was for all the warrant and capital
Yeah,
articles for all the
I'm
different.
sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just
Read my
wanted,
mind.
to be clear, I'm talking about the right
Yeah.
thing. So I had sent out, and I had downloaded each department a report to send to each department head for them to return with like status updates. So that is actually in Excel, and it's a little more user-friendly. So it will have more information, and it's a little easier to read. It's
A little more of a description.
yeah. So it will, and anything that is kind of vague, I can just go back to the town meetings and try to find so you get the idea of actually what that article is for, because especially ones if they're a few years old, they
Right.
kind of forget what they were
Exactly,
for. So
exactly, okay.
yeah, try to make it as like accessible as possible, so it's actually useful information.
Yep, agreed. Excellent. Well, appreciate your time. Thanks
Of
for the
course.
indulgence.
Yeah, happy to. Is
Jeff,
there any other?
I have nothing. Thank you, Kathleen.
Michael? Nothing? I have nothing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Get a-
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.